appreciate you tuning in. Today is Sunday, March 24th?
Oh, no, it's actually March
19th. 19th. I knew that.
Today.
Today's the 19th. On Sunday, it will be the 24th when you're listening to this. I'm your host, Hertzy Hertz, and I'm here in the second comfiest studio I've ever been in, Maddie's living room, where I am joined by Maddie Love, and on Skype is our special guest, Dustin, from the amazing podcast, Atheist Nomads.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Hold on one second, just a little bit more, and then we'll be good.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. This is not, unfortunately, an open conversation, as this is pre-recorded. However, we welcome and encourage listener interaction with your emails to radio@mnatheist.org, tweet us at Atheist Talk, or check out our Facebook page, Atheist Talk. Books, movies, comics all obsess over the end of the world, and in one corner of Christendom stands apocalypse preppers, those who know the rapture is just around the corner. This time, we swear, just in reach. Today, we will dive into the idea of the Seventh Day Adventist view, which, if you look at the general Christian view, has many similarities. Maddie, Dustin, good morning and welcome to Atheist Talk.
Good morning. This is pre-recorded because I have a baby and let my wife sleep in on the weekends.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And, that way Hertzy and I actually don't have to get up. It's weird not going to church anymore. And so thinking, what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up on a Sunday morning and have a conversation where religion is involved in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And my favorite part is I'm going to drive probably 4 or 5 times minimum the amount of driving it would take for me to get to the nearest Catholic church, which is like 4 blocks away.
That's a massive you drive.
Now, as a former Adventist, I have always slept in on Sundays.
Oh,
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So, first, let's actually talk a little bit about your podcast, Atheist Nomads, which, I actually started listening to probably about 5 years ago for a little bit. Admittedly, I've tailed off, but you had some fabulous episodes talking about some really good conversations. So why don't you pitch that for us?
Yeah, it's a weekly show, mostly news and current events. We've been going for almost 7 years now. Episode 300 is coming up just next month. And we're going to be doing a 5-hour live stream for that with some local comedians coming in to join us. And it's going to be a real fun time. The show's been going on for quite a while. It's great. I love it.
Awesome. And where can people find you in case I forget to ask this question later?
atheistnomads.com, or go anywhere that podcast or social media is and look for Atheist Nomads.
So just roam around.
Yep. We're even on Instagram now with pictures of babies and guests. And by babies, my baby. She's adorable.
As you're looking for podcasts in your nomadic fashion, you've scrolled up, you've already obviously found Atheist Talk from Minnesota Atheists. So just search atheist instead of atheists, and you'll find Atheist Nomads. If you're listening, you're already using a podcasting app.
Probably.
Well, unless you're listening live, and then you're using your car.
Or streaming.
We
have streamers.
That's true.
It's a party over there.
Oh, is this actually going to be on the radio?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I will watch my language.
Well, we would bleep you if you didn't.
I've been on Ask an Atheist, which is also radio, and had to be careful there.
Yes.
I love those folks over at Ask an Atheist. Yeah. They're out of Seattle. Or are they out of Tacoma now?
Tacoma.
One of the two. Yeah, they were going back and forth. That's where I first heard Rich Lyons and oh my gosh, I'm spacing on her name.
Deanna Joy Lyons.
Thank you. We've had as guests before. Yes. And then Becky and Sam, and I don't know I guess I don't know who else is on right now.
It's a rotating cast.
Yeah, it's a great show. Anyway, I'm sorry. I put you guys off on a tangent.
That's okay. It's not as great as the show, though.
No.
If you want Minnesota focus, you got you guys. If you want Seattle focus, Ask an Atheist is pretty good with covering those local things. And if you want to hear an Intermountain West sometimes focus, Atheist Nomads has that.
That is true. All right. So we brought you on here for a specific reason. You actually took a class on prepping for the apocalypse.
Yes. So in 2000, I finished up as far as my Adventist school in the town I was growing up in went, which was 10th grade. So I went to the Oregon Conference's final boarding school, Milo Adventist Academy. This school was built out in the wilderness. The address is Days Creek, Oregon. Days Creek is 8 miles away, and nobody's ever heard of it. The nearest city with an airport is an hour drive.
Okay, but then where's the nearest town?
The nearest town is Days Creek, and it's 8 miles away.
Okay. Middle of nowhere.
There's mountains on either side. The only way to access the campus is across a covered bridge. And it was built in the 1950s when Adventists were so sure that Jesus was coming that decade that they built the campus to last 5 years. They figured 10 would be the absolute max.
As opposed to the how many times now that they've been sure it's going to happen within this certain amount of time?
Well, considering the Adventist Church is descended from the Millerite movement, they should have all remembered. They should have all remembered the Great Disappointment.
I love the fact that you said you're going to the school in the 2000s.
Uh-huh.
This is 1955 and it's built for 5 years. Was it just claptrap plywood and steel sheet metal roof, or
could you use it?
They had just rebuilt. They just rebuilt both dormitories. And by rebuilt I mean they had to completely gut it down to bare studs and replace everything, all the flooring, all the walls, the roof, the ceiling, the internal and exterior walls. They seriously had to gut those buildings. And shortly after I left, the administration building was gutted and completely rebuilt. That's where all the classrooms were. While I was there, it was ridiculous how many parts of the floors creaked because it was falling apart.
Did anyone fall through the floors or a wall?
No, that never happened. But there were some stories of secret marijuana grows that were discovered in the walls of the dorms when they gutted them.
Wait, doesn't that go against the Adventist philosophy or rules?
Yeah, it does. But you also have to keep in mind, this was Southern Oregon in the 90s and early 2000s. The Marine Corps was coming and doing summer training out of the Grants Pass Airport, just 45 miles from there, to keep fresh on how to handle jungle situations, looking for pot. It was growing everywhere. If you went hiking in the mountains from campus, you had to be careful to make sure you didn't stumble upon the wrong property, and there was a chance you'd find an armed pot grower there.
Ooh, I think I've seen this movie. Did it have a banjo player in it? That music might be copyrighted.
But it was less than 10 seconds.
Doesn't matter.
Really?
No,
Nope.
It doesn't. So I'm curious though, I was never a Seventh Day Adventist, so I know smoking is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is there prohibitions against pot and if you were just making an edible out of it, is that okay?
Nope, it is all bad. There are even Adventists who go as far as to not take over-the-counter medication.
So does it make you mad though at all, or frustrate you that Seventh Day Adventists in general tend to live longer than the rest of us?
No, it doesn't, because I know how little joy they're having.
Fair. Oh, that's a good rebuttal.
I would rather have a happy 70 years than an Adventist 80.
Yes.
I'll drink to that.
I also got to watch my Adventist grandparents get into their 90s, and that was hell.
Sorry.
I don't think that was a pun. I don't think that was a double entendre.
No, it wasn't. I still laughed. Oh, if we forgot to warn you and our listeners, Maddie and I do kind of pun a bit.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Okay, we do.
Yeah, we do. So real quick, I know that there's a thing in the church, in the different churches and religions and stuff, where some people believe that the rapture happens with the rapture, you have 7 years of absolute horribleness. Which
yes, the tribulation.
Yes, which we'll get into after the break. Now, some people believe that the rapture happens before tribulation, and some people believe that happens after the tribulation. So
there are also some who believe that it is mid-tribulation.
Go ahead. They had to make a third one, didn't they?
And then there is, because there's the two times of trouble. There's the time of trouble and the time of Jacob's trouble. Each are 3.5 years long. And
Who the
so
heck's Jacob?
What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
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 You saw that coming.
And then there is also, does the whole world end and the good go up to heaven and the bad either to hell or just non-existence before the millennium, or does Christ come down to earth and reign on the earth for the millennium? So there's a whole lot of different ways that eschatology goes.
Okay, we're going to start from the beginning of this after the break.
I just am astounded you didn't know who Jacob is.
Well, I know who like Jacob the.
We'll talk about this.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later. All right, please stay with us through this break, and we'll return to Atheist Talk with Maddie and Dustin. I'm Hertzie Hertz, and you're listening to Atheist Talk is produced with funding for the Minnesota Atheist and Cucumbers Restaurant in Edina, Minnesota. Please consider visiting our sponsors, and if you do, let them know that you appreciate their support of Atheist Talk. If you'd like to advertise on the program and help keep us on the air, please contact us at radio@mnatheists.org. As for the here and now, if you'd like to send us a message, you can email us at radio@mnatheists.org, tweet us at @atheisttalk, or check out the Facebook page, Atheist Talk. Maddie, Dustin, welcome back.
Thank you.
I like how we have some consistent branding there. And, during the break, and this is a pre-recorded session, so our break lasted a lot longer than it normally would, which is fine. But we had this fantastic conversation, and you were talking about so there was a word that got edited out of the first segment.
Yes.
That listeners may pick up the context for.
Okay, so to paint a little more of a picture of this campus I was going to, where there was a survival training, it was in the mountains, covered bridge for the only access to get to it, secluded by very steep, rugged mountains and a river. And all the buildings were in a circle, or actually an oval, and there was a covered oval walkway around it, and then this big open lawn in the middle. And I would often be walking around through that lawn. I remember it very distinctly numerous times, and have cuss words come into my mind, and I would silently pray for forgiveness for even thinking a sinful word.
I can identify with that so much. Just like I remember when I left the church and when I finally realized that there was nobody watching over me, there was no God or anything else. Nobody was reading my thoughts. Just because up until then, it was always still that somebody's listening. That thought control mind police was so, it was so ingrained, and it was so damaging.
I want to give you both really big hugs. I grew up with liberal parents in a Catholic church that didn't go to the Thought Police Academy, so I'm
now picturing Bobcat Goldthwait as the Thought Police Academy.
But we also wanted to go through, so why don't we let's go back to the apocalypse.
Yes.
So start at the beginning of what this apocalypse is supposed to be.
Okay, so in the Adventist framing of it, it all begins with the second beast of Revelation making friends with the first beast of Revelation. The second beast is the United States, and the first beast is the papacy.
Now, the Seventh Day Adventists do realize that Revelations was written before the United States.
Yep. But Adventists had a prophet in the 1800s who identified the U.S. as the second beast of Revelation.
Got it.
Yep. She, like my Chihuahua, had brain damage. And yeah, I am firmly of the belief that Ellen White was taken advantage of by James White, who was the leader of the church for many, many years until he died. And I suspect he took advantage of and controlled a brain damaged woman who was having seizures. And it is all actually quite tragic.
But back to the apocalypse.
Yes, so the apocalypse. So the
beast.
the beasts make friends, and so the U.S. government and the papacy are working together, and they're trying to get everybody to follow God and establish a national Sunday law. And that's just going to be in the United States, and it will require that all businesses be closed on Sunday, and that will be the start of the time of trouble. As the time progresses, there will be more and more restrictions placed, and eventually attending church on Sunday will be required to be able to take part in commerce, so to buy or sell things. And at that point, that's when you get the mark of the beast.
Do they ever? I know, and I know that there's. If you go into the various fictions, they kind of go into what different technologies the mark of the beast is. What was the original mark of the beast?
I'm not exactly sure. I know in some versions of it, it's been that it would be, it's on the hand or the forehead, and so it has to do with working on the true Sabbath. Is your hand getting the mark? And going to church on Sunday is getting it on your forehead, because that's a more of a mental activity. Adventists basically put it as Sunday worship is the mark of the beast. But there have also been evangelists who have looked at anything from a national ID to RFID chips or retina scans to replace, or even at one point it's just credit cards. They go with whatever technology is coming or looks possible, and that's it. That's going to be it.
Retina scans?
Yeah.
The thing you're born with?
So you have your retina, but to be able to use have your retina scanned and tied to your bank accounts, and then you could just do your purchases by getting your retina scanned. That is a possibility that could happen. Eye is close to the forehead, so that would count as the mark of the beast.
That's some foresight. I would love, honestly, would I think it'd be awesome to have a little RFID chip in my hand or something. Like assuming, for me, the drawbacks aren't the technology itself or the idea of it. The drawbacks to me are like what happens with technology upgrades and what happens, when it breaks down. The idea though of having it in my hand so I don't have to bring, or like what if a thief cuts off my hand, stuff like that. But the ideas of having it in my hand for my convenience, I am on board.
Oh, I agree. I think mine is more security as far as hacking, because we have all these Bluetooth devices nowadays, and one of the things that my techie friends talk about is it's your phone should be relatively protected by the security on there. It's your crock pot that you connect to that fair. May not have that same level.
What if I just wear one Michael Jackson aluminum foil glove? Just over the hand that has the RFID chip.
Don't put that in the
cage. When that becomes mainstream that there will be gloves like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm all for it. We'll have a nice shiny, I'll just bedazzle it or bejewel it or whatever with pink rhinestones.
Awesome. Okay, so we've gotten up to...
At this point, we're about a year in.
Okay, and has the rapture happened yet? And the rapture is when, for everyone who doesn't know, is when all of the good, happy Christians get zooped up, and depending on which for whatever you're going with, that zooping comes in various forms.
And that's why I always wear clean underwear. I don't want to get zooped up and have to go, whoa, her underwear was a little dirty.
Okay, so after that, by that point, life is getting more than just difficult, and not attending church on Sunday will get you thrown in prison. So the government's going to start hunting people down. So all of the good Christians, i.e. Adventists, and those who didn't know they were Adventists that are going to other churches but really are Adventists, will flee to the hills.
Iron Maiden did a song about that.
And it made sense in even, 2001 when I did Senior Survival. It seemed plausible then. Literally 2 years later, when
Dustin?
Yeah.
I have to cut you off right there, but we will figure out what he did right after the break when we're return to our conversation with Maddie and Dustin. Thank you for tuning in to Atheist Talk on AM 15 KTNF. I'm your host, Trixie Hertz, and we're having what I would classify as a fascinating conversation with Maddie Love and Dustin. If you'd like to send us a message, you can email us at radio@mnatheist.org, tweet us at Atheist Talk, or check out our Facebook, Atheist Talk. I want to note the group of dedicated volunteers and the generous donations of you, our listeners. You help keep Atheist Talk on the air and in podcast form. I would normally note our donor of the week, but unfortunately I don't have one because this is pre-recorded. Sad face. If you are able to help with a donation, please consider doing so at either our Radio Fund page or our Patreon, where you can get extended interviews at www.patreon.com/atheisttalk. Minnesota Atheist is a 501c3 tax-deductible organization. We couldn't do this show without you, and we deeply appreciate your support. Music from Atheist Talk is by composer and member Brent Michael Davis and is used with permission. Please note all opinions are of the guest and host only and do not necessarily reflect those of the Minnesota Atheist Organization. Now, let's get back to the conversation with Maddie and Dustin. All right, so Dustin, you were talking, when we left off, you were talking about, let's see, I think we were about a year into the Revelation. Okay, so what's happening now?
Okay, so at this point, the government's hunting down all the true believers that are out hiding in the woods so that they can worship on Saturday and not have to go to church on Sunday. And at this point, it was plausible up until about 2003, 2004, when Civil Air Patrol got air vans in, I think, out to every wing. So every state around the country had one. And these are planes that civilians are flying for all kinds of, mostly search and rescue, disaster relief and the like. But they have multispectral imaging equipment on them. So somebody sitting down at mission headquarters can watch on the screen as this plane is flying over an area and looking for heat signatures from bodies. Because if you're wanting to find somebody hiding in the wood, the same technology that works for finding people lost in the woods will be highly effective.
No, true. Logical.
Defeated by Civil Air Patrol. Yep. It's completely implausible now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There is not a chance that you could hide in the woods from the government.
That's
that is not possible anymore. No. And if it wasn't for multispectral imaging on aircraft, satellites now can do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and to be perfectly honest, the government really would have to, those do still cost at least a fair number of resources. So the government's really going to want to have a reason to go find you.
Oh, yeah. It's several $100s an hour to fly those planes. One reason why they're out there is they are so much cheaper than if the military was doing it, and it would cost literally tens of thousands of dollars an hour to do the same thing.
So moving back to the apocalypse.
Yes. Okay. So people are getting hunted down.
Everyone down.
Yep. They're getting drug off to prison. Some are getting executed for not refusing to go to church on Sunday. Eventually we get to the time of Jacob's trouble. So that's 3.5 years in. And at that point, the international Sunday law is passed. So everyone around the world has to, actually, no, that's earlier. But yeah, so at some point, international Sunday law is passed. At the time of Jacob's trouble, halfway through, God removes his grace from the earth. So the believers that are out hiding in the woods are, before God without a intermediary. So Jesus is no longer helping. Judgment is complete. If you sin at that point, it won't do anything because you've already been judged one way or the other. If you accept Christ at that point, it won't do anything because you've already been judged. And at that point, the world tears itself apart. So
is this when the rapture happens?
Not for another 3.5 years.
Really?
Yep.
So you're judged, but you're still going to have to go through another 3.5 years before anything. So what happens if you're judged and you die? And you're like that's one of the rapture. Does that mean like the next person in line gets to go in?
Oh, no. That's not a problem. Because at the end of all of this, once the world has, like, natural disasters are destroying everything. Imagine every apocalyptic movie plus The Day After Tomorrow all happening at the same time. And that's basically the picture here. So at the end of that, then Jesus comes, and as he's descending, leaving heaven through Orion's belt. Yes, Ellen White was that specific. The path from heaven to earth is through Orion's belt. Jesus comes to earth with a bunch of angels with him, comes down into the sky, and is simultaneously seen by everyone on earth. The righteous are then lifted up into the air. Well, the dead righteous are raised from the graves and lifted up. Then the living righteous rise up with them, and everyone who is judged inadequate dies. Adventists do not believe you have an immortal soul, so those who die will remain dead until after the 1,000 years, the millennium, when Christ takes all of the good people that are in heaven with him back to earth, with the Jerusalem that's in heaven coming down, literally a city coming down onto the planet. And then all the wicked people get raised from the dead and are shown how they were wrong, and then are burned up and are annihilated.
I'm pretty sure I had a D&D game go this way.
And I'm just amazed that, like, this was, you said, like, the 1800s when this whole where Jesus was coming from, this thing. But, like, okay, so the 3 stars in Orion's belt, because we're not talking about the sword hanging down, but the actual 3 stars.
Yep.
Those 3 stars were formed about the same time and are actually formed from the same molecular class. So they're, because most stars in the sky you see that close to each other are really, like, super far away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they look close because of where our vantage point is, but one is like 1 billion light years away. That's too far. One is like, 500 light years away, and one's like 20 light years away. But from our vantage point, they both look like they're close. Anyway, but these stars were all formed at the time. So there is a nugget of truth in this. Like, I don't think there's any way that he could have known that these 3 stars.
Yeah.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
They're also each 20 times more massive than the sun.
Now, okay, so at the point that Ellen White was writing about this stuff, she was in the depths of despair. This was after James died. She was severely depressed, and according to some rumors, had quite the vinegar problem. Couldn't have good alcohol, so she would drink alcoholic vinegar.
Oh. Although, like, this is like, what you were talking about, how tragic her life sort of like is like, she already has, like, brain damage. She already has these mental issues that she's struggling with. And then, she's been in it sounds like a traumatic situation, an abusive situation for so long. And then you have that abuser just ripped out. I mean, not that made it better, but, like, there's no way to make that good.
Yeah.
I feel hard, like, my heart breaks for this woman.
Well, so she was hit by a classmate in the head with a rock as a child. She dropped out of school after 2nd grade, suffered from severe headaches the rest of her life. And after the Great Disappointment, she was 17 years old and started having visions. And then she and James got married because they started doing the preaching circuit together, and it would save on hotel rooms.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Motel 6 wasn't invented yet. Motel 666, on the other hand.
Run by the Catholics. No, not actually. No. I mean, Seventh Day Adventists might think that, since Dustin and I technically are on the opposite sides of this coin. Him growing up Seventh Day Adventist, I grew up Catholic.
Yep. Now, although we would actually now be all on the bad side of either side of the coin, because we wouldn't be inclined to obey a national Sunday law, and yet we wouldn't want to be running to the hills and hiding with a bunch of crazies.
Well, and I'm confused because as you were talking about that originally, you had talked about how, like, the Seventh Day you had said something about the Seventh Day Adventists who didn't know they were Adventists.
Yes.
I don't understand that. I've never heard that. Could you explain that?
Okay, so there are the idea is that there are Adventists have a view of present truth that is mostly settled now, but it was a big idea in the 1800s of present truth. It's progressive revelation as God continues the process of the Protestant Reformation to restore the church to its good, pure form. And people are judged based on the amount of light that they have. So if, a good Muslim who lives the best life as a Muslim as he or she thinks is the way to live life, will be saved, because that person is living according to the life that person has. And there are people who are living their lives according to the light that they have and are good people. They just don't know what they don't know. And when the time of trouble happens, they will start to figure it out and join the Adventists.
So a number of atheists are probably going to be okay because we're living.
Yep. Unless you have rejected Jesus, then you're screwed.
I'm just thinking that's very. I mean, that's in line with like C.S. Lewis, like his version of Christianity. I just remember reading, the whole Narnia series, and they specifically have a character in the final book as they're going off to whatever heaven exists. And, the God figure Aslan was like, no, he gets to come too. And for the same, and the guy's basically standing for a Muslim, but.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let's go back to this camp now.
Okay.
Or have we finished the tribulation?
Yes. Yep. That's all done.
Whew, that was a lot bigger than I expected.
Oh yeah.
That is fine. That is fine, because I still probably have a million more questions. Let's go back to the camp you were at. So it's been renovated. You've got new buildings and such. Let's start with a positive. What was your favorite class?
AP US History.
That's it?
That was my favorite class. Yeah.
Well, I know, but now you have to describe the class.
Oh, it was just a really good history class, and the teacher was he was really good. He was really weird. I think now I would suspect he was probably autistic and just had never been diagnosed. That would explain like all of his mannerisms. Most interesting one was he would say the word particular all the time. And even when it didn't make any sense, he would say the word particular. But he was just a lot of fun.
All right. I'm actually going to have to cut you off again. I'm sorry. But we will come back to Dustin and talking about his camp after the break. Thank you for joining us. Maddie, Dustin, and I. Welcome back to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. You're tuned in to Atheist Talk, and I'm your host, Hertzy Hertz, in the living room studio of Maddie Love, having this amazing conversation with Dustin from Atheist Nomads. If you're curious about Minnesota Atheists, you can check out the Minnesota Atheist website. We have previous episodes. You can browse articles, book reviews, and peruse the calendar of upcoming events. You can also sign up for the Atheist Weekly email, which will give you links to upcoming events. We always have tons of activities going around the Twin Cities and the outlying suburbs. For example, we have the Dinner with the Board, which will feature a lovely Cuban-inspired meal cooked by myself and some of the other board members. Oh, yes, Maddie, it is that good.
It sounds delicious.
It is. We have that going, and then we also have the Day of Reason, which will be coming up on May 2nd. On the days leading up to the Day of Reason, we'll be having our Week of Action, which will be many different ways that you can help out the local community and local charities and such in the area. So check out the meetup page for that and more. And actually, we are going to have a end of the world party. And believe it or not, I've gotten the details wrong about this end of the world party for like ever since we started talking about it. So it is actually on June 8th, not June 9th, because the end of the world is on June 9th. The party is on the 8th to make sure, in case the rapture does happen, or the tribulation starts, as we've now learned, because it could happen in 2 or 3 different places. So either
Or
way, or it's all over the map.
Yep.
But yes, it will be, I believe it's at the Waterbury. It is on June 8th. Absolutely come and join us. It is going to be a ending good time. That was shoehorned in really badly.
I thought it was fantastic. Very revealing.
Yeah. Anyways, if you enjoy the show and all that Minnesota Atheist has to offer, consider becoming a member of Minnesota Atheist while you're on the website. Membership has some amazing perks. Check out the hows and the whys. And now back to our conversation with Maddie and Dustin.
So we're getting to get it like deep into prepping in this last segment.
Yep.
Yes, we're
fantastic.
We have 6 minutes. Let's try and prep as much as we can.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if Dustin's willing to talk longer, we can always at the end of the show for our Patreon listeners prep even more.
I like this. We'll get the secret prepping.
The secret.
All right. So Dustin, tell us about what kind of prepping classes you had during your time at the camp.
Okay. So far, I haven't talked about the camp itself. I've just talked about the campus where I went to high school. Senior survival is a thing that, at least within the northwestern part of the U.S., is a rite of passage for Adventist high school seniors. And September about 8, 2001, we loaded up into vans and we drove 8 miles away from campus into the wilderness, because we were already that close to wilderness. And in Southern Oregon, when you talk about wilderness, it is literally wilderness. Like, if you're there in the wrong season, you're dead type wilderness.
So for Minnesota locals, the Boundary Waters.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
I was going to say, Minnesota has a lot of nature. Yeah. We are not far.
So picture a campus that's right at the edge of the Boundary Waters, and then go 8 miles from there.
Got it.
And so we have our camp set up. We have classes every day. We have spiritual survival, where we're going through excerpts of Ellen White's The Great Controversy, talking about how to be ready for the end days. And then we have wild edibles, a class where we get to learn about how to identify which local plants that grow in the mountains of Southern Oregon you can pick and eat, and how long you can survive eating plants, and at what point you have to start setting traps for rodents and eat them. It's about 7 days.
So Seventh Day Adventists normally vegetarians?
About half of U.S. Seventh Day Adventists are vegetarian. The other half only eat clean meats following the rules in Leviticus chapter 11. Rodents are not clean, but if it's that or die, you'll eat.
So what about bugs? Was there any rules about bugs?
Some bugs are okay, some are not. Crickets are fine, but not all bugs are okay.
All right. So you're going through this survival portion. Admittedly, what went through your mind?
It was a lot of fun. It was, we were grouped up into, oh man, I don't remember what the exact term was for our groups, but we were each in these small groups that we camped together. We went through all the classes together, and it was just it was fun. I'd always been interested in survival skills, so getting survival training was something I definitely enjoyed. It wasn't the first time I'd had some kind of survival training, but it was the most in-depth because it went for a full week. That all changed Tuesday of that week, when we're sitting there in spiritual survival class, and the principal brings up the one classmate that wasn't there because he'd been in Texas for a wedding in his family. And he brought him up, and he pulled the pastor aside that was leading the class, whispered in his ear. And then the pastor sat down and was like, okay, what if I told you that terrorists took over a plane and flew it into the World Trade Center? And then took another plane and flew it also into the World Trade Center. And then one hit the Pentagon, and another one's headed for the Capitol. And we were like, we wouldn't believe you. She's like, it happened.
That's how they told you.
That's the worst. That is terrible.
Yep.
That's horrifying.
It was, especially considering the fact that just a month prior, I had been on one of those flights, and 6 weeks prior, I had been in the Pentagon.
How do you? It's like we think of many Christians think of their pastors as leaders, and that they understand like how to talk to people and how to break news gently, and they're supposed to have all this training. At least that the idea is, wow.
Yeah.
One classmate married him.
What?
Ew.
Like 10 years later.
Oh, I don't care. Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of us hate his guts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
I can imagine.
Most of us are atheists now, but we all hate him regardless. For me, I was one of the final holdouts. I finally believed it when I heard our senator on the radio. One classmate waited until he heard the president.
Oh, I can see that. That is such a. I mean, yeah. Well, I got like a minute left before we head over to Patreon. I mean, this isn't a 9/11 show, but at the same time, that was an apocalyptic event to many people, and in the church, did that cause people to think, "Oh my gosh, the apocalypse is now"?
Yes, and I was one of them. I started feeling a sense of calling to the ministry just a few weeks later. And after getting bit by a poisonous spider on a mission trip in Mexico, I became convinced that I was an important part of God's plan to help prepare the world for a second coming.
Okay, so now we have to have you on twice more because we're going to have to explain how this came. You went from soon to be pastor and important part of God's plan to atheist with a super awesome podcast. As for the rest of us, we will see you again next week where we'll have another exciting episode. Thank you so much for joining us.